A wise man once told me that Tarkov giveth, Tarkov also taketh away. I got one question though. What the hell is Escape from Tarkov? Yo, what's cracking YouTube? Trevor Casual back here, and welcome to the first installment of Tarkov 101. That's right, class is in session, take a seat. So this series is going to be geared towards brand new players to help them learn the bare bones basics of Escape from Tarkov. So from map breakdowns to basic movement controls, even some gameplay tips and tricks every now and then, this series is going to cover everything that you need as a new player to help build a strong foundation in EFT. So in today's lesson, if you will, we're going to go over just the basic gameplay concept as well as some basic character details. So if you don't already know, Escape from Tarkov is a hardcore survival looter shooter FPS. So the basic gameplay premise is to enter into a map or a raid, find loot in said map, and extract successfully with that loot. Now the gameplay, it goes way more in depth than that, but for today's sake, we're just going to focus on that basic description. Now if you survive and successfully extract from a raid, everything you found in that raid, you get to keep, and that loot will go into your player stash. Simple, right? But on the flip side, if you happen to die in that raid, everything you had on your character, you lose. Sorry, bud, is gone. This gameplay mechanic, that type risk and reward style gameplay, is why I've hopelessly become addicted to Escape from Tarkov, as well as many others, and I feel like that's kind of what sets it apart from any other games out right now, is the feeling that you get while you're playing the game is unmatched and unlike anything else that I've ever played. From the stress and tension that you might feel while you're going through your raid, to the joy and excitement that you might feel when you successfully extract from a raid with a bunch of good loot, and even down to just the sadness and despair that you're gonna feel when you get smoked and lose all that gear that you had on your character. All of that kind of rolled into one is why I feel like this game is unlike anything that's out right now. So like I previously mentioned, you have to physically extract from each raid. So some of you might be thinking, what the hell does that even mean, extract? It's not enough to just find loot. I don't just keep it when I put it on my character. No. So in order to actually successfully secure the loot that you might have looted off of someone else's kill while you were sitting in that bush pissing your pants, you have to physically make it to what are called extraction points. Extraction points are specific areas on each map that you physically have to go to in order to successfully get out of the raid. Now, there is no mini-map in Escape from Tarkov, so it's up to you, yes you, to memorize where the extractions are on any given map. Now, I'm going to link in the description down below to a website that has detailed layouts and descriptions of each of the playable maps that'll detail out where the extractions are, where the specific loot spawns are, and things like that. So this is an awesome tool that really helped me when I was trying to learn and when I'm still trying to learn new maps. So I highly suggest taking advantage of that. You can just have it up on a second monitor if you have one, on your phone, on a tablet somewhere. But having it up and having a reference point to look at while you're playing through is really going to help you nail down those extraction points. So if you might notice on this map of reserve that I have up right here, if you take a look on the left-hand side, you'll see a little section over here that says Scav only and PMC. So that leads me right into our next point, which is to discuss the difference between playing as a PMC and playing as a Scav. We're actually going to go hop into the stream setup real quick so I can break that down for you guys, and we'll continue and kind of break down some character details as well. So you can kind of have that little visual aid as we're going through this one real quick. By the way, I stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. Go check it out. Always plug. All right, peeps. So we're over at the stream setup. So real quick, we're just going to go over the difference between Scavs and PMCs. So if I go over to the Escape from Tarkov tab and I click on here real quick, you'll see that you have two player options that you could choose from. So we're actually going to start by explaining the Scav real quick. So the Scav or Scavenger are the AI that are in the game that also will be in each raid as you go through. Now there are two types of Scavs here. There are AI Scavs, which are exactly like they sound. They're bots controlled by the computer. And there are also player Scavs, so that's us. So players that enter into a raid and control their own Scav. So that's going to be the two types of Scavs that you have. Now as a player Scav, your gear that you take into a raid on your Scav is completely randomized. You do not get to pick what kind of gear that your Scav goes into a raid with. All right, now on the flip side, if we head over to the PMC over here, This is the complete opposite. So the PMC is your main character that you play with. So the PMC, you get to choose your loadout from your player stash. So any of the gear that you have set aside in your stash, you can equip onto your PMC. So again, that's the main difference between PMCs and scavs. Capiche? Cool, let's move on. All right, so speaking of PMC, real quick, we're actually gonna go over to the character screen and we're gonna go over some just basic character details, explain the stash and things like that. So I'm gonna click back, and if I go over here to the character tab, boom, this will be everything that your character specifically will have. So over on the right-hand side here, this is gonna be your player stash that I mentioned before. So this is where you're gonna store all your items that you come out of raid with, and that you can use going in for future raids. So you can see I have all my weapons down here. I have some gear here in the middle, some cases and things like that. But again, this is where all of the items that your character is able to use are gonna be stored. Now over here on the upper right hand side, this is going to be kind of your bank account, your money situation a little bit. So on the left hand side, this is going to be the amount of rubles that I have. Rubles are the main currency in Escape from Tarkov. So in the center you have euros as well as dollars over here on the right hand side. So I'd say 90% of the things that you're going to buy or anything like that are going to be done in rubles. Euros and dollars are only for specific items from specific traders and things like that. But so again, I just really quick wanted to kind of just touch on the bank account situation up here. So if we go over to the left-hand side here, this is everything that is physically on your character when you enter into a raid. So you can see I got my main weapon here. I got the AK-74. You know what I'm saying? So you got your main weapon. You have some gear like your helmet, any headphones you might be taking over here. You have your rig and things like that. So again, all of this is what you go into a raid with your PMC when you equip it. Now, real quick, I want to touch on this little handy dandy little container down here that you see. So this is going to be your secure container. So what the hell is a secure container? So basically anything that you have in this container when you enter into a raid, let's say you die in that raid for whatever reason, anything that you have in that container, you will keep. You're not going to lose it. It is secured in that container. I personally like to keep like extra meds, some keys, maybe some painkillers, extra bullets, things like that. But again, the main premise of the secure container is anything that you keep in there, you will not lose in a raid if you die. Capiche? Cool, let's move on. All right, so I moved my camera out of the way because we're gonna talk about health and character details a little bit more here. So if I go over up onto the top bar here and I click on the health tab, this will display your character's health. Go fucking figure, right? So as you can see right here on the left-hand side, your character's limbs have individual HP. That's kind of how the health system works in EFT. So you'll have your total HP in green down here at the bottom. But again, all of your individual limbs have their own HP. So you can see the head, you got 35, the thorax has 80, so on and so forth. Now, real quick, we're going to touch on what happens if one of your limbs goes all the way down to 0. So let's say you're in a firefight and somebody hits your left arm and it goes all the way down to 0 HP. That arm is now, it's gone essentially. We call them blacked out limbs. So you can see that my character's silhouette is gray in color right here. So if I were to have a blacked out arm, this whole section would turn black. It's very, very visible. But so essentially, if you have a blacked out limb, it's essentially like that limb is gone. It no longer can be used. So let's say you're in that firefight, someone blacks out your left arm. That's going to have effects on your character as you go through the rest of the raid. So if you black out an arm, your aim starts to get a little bit shaky. It's harder to kind of steady your shot. Your accuracy goes down, things like that. Same thing where if someone blacks out your leg, your character then will walk with kind of that pimp walk a little bit. You're going to have a limp because your leg is essentially gone. It's not able to be used like normal. So that's an important thing to keep in mind as you're going through your raids. Now, I will say there are items in the game that will help you fix blacked out limbs. So you can see this handy dandy little Serve 12 kit down here. This is an item that will help fix a blacked out limb. So you essentially, I would drag this over to my blacked out limb, I'd let it do its thing, and it restores that blacked out limb to 1 HP, and then you were able to heal it using a healing item and something like that. So there are workarounds around blacked out limbs and things like that, but again, just doing the very, very basics right now as far as health is concerned. So now that we've covered the health kind of portion here, we're going to actually look at the very, very bottom here. You can see this little water droplet and lightning bolt. So the water droplet, this is going to be your character's hydration, and this is going to be your character's energy. So this is a survival style game. So as you go through raids and you do things like walk around, sprint and everything, your hydration, you're going to consume hydration and energy. So you always have to make sure that you're keeping an eye on your energy and hydration, because you don't want this to go down to 0. If any of these go down to 0, essentially your character is dead. Just like in real life, if you don't drink water for a week, you're gonna freaking die. So again, hydration and things like that, you can bring your hydration up, obviously by drinking some kind of liquid like a water or a juice or something like that. And same thing with energy, you can restore your energy by eating food and things like that. So that is the basics of hydration and energy kind of in a nutshell. All right, peeps, so the last thing we're going to kind of touch on here before we end off the video is going to be the weight system that is in the game. So if you go up to the top here and click on the gear tab, you can notice in the bottom left-hand corner, you have your character weight. So right now, with all of my gear and things that I have, my character weighs 22.9 kilos out of 75. So I'm just going to touch on the very basics of the weight system right now. I'm making like kind of an in-depth tutorial and guide on that a little bit later in the future here. But for right now, we're just going to focus on the basics. So all you have to really know is that each item has a specific weight. So if I double click that AK up in the upper right hand corner, you're gonna see the weight of that particular item, 4.413 kilograms. So it's kind of a newer thing that they implemented. So the higher and the more weight that you have on your character, that's gonna affect your character's stats and everything like that. So the more you have, the slower you're gonna start to move, the more noise you're gonna make, and the harder you're not gonna be able to walk and run at full speed, things like that. So just know that the heavier and the more gear that you have on you, the heavier you're gonna weigh, the more status effects are gonna be applied to your character. So again, just touching on the basics for the weight system right now. So let's go ahead and kick it back over to the full screen and we'll kind of close this thing out. All right, peeps, that's all I got for you today. So just a quick recap of today's video. So we touched on the basic gameplay mechanics. We also touched on some character details, like the differences between scavs and PMCs. We went through the player stash, some basic player mechanics as well, like your health system, hydration, energy, and all that kind of stuff. I want to thank you guys for stopping by. If you're excited for some more Tarkov guides like this one, go ahead, feel free to hit that sub button, maybe smash the like button if you're feeling like it. And also down in the comments below, I would love to know what you guys thought was the most interesting kind of mechanic that we touched on today. Maybe it was scavs versus PMCs, maybe the weight system kind of intrigued you. I would love to know what you guys' thoughts are down in the comments below. Again, I want to thank you guys for stopping by. My name is Trevor Casual, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.